The shot is basically finished at this point. Now it's really just gonna be about, doing some slight color corrections and really adding those little touches that make the whole shot more finished, I guess. And we can start off by doing here a simple vignette, for example. I mean, once again, you have tons of way of doing this, and you wouldn't always do it. Sometimes it's something that we could do, for example, in grading. And grading can also be done in many other softwares like DaVinci Resolve, Adobe Premiere. I want to stick only to Nuke in this case, so you can just add a vignette by using like a gray node and then adding like a simple roto, playing a little bit with the feathering and the opacity. Really simple tricks, so nothing too crazy. It's really all about doing those slight tweaks that give this finished cinematic look, I would say. Okay, something like this should work, I think. Slightly tweaking the feathering. Okay, so that's about it for the vignette. Another thing we can do is a glow. Now, you have many ways to do it. You have like a basic node called the glow node that is native inside of Nuke. You can try to use that to do like this bloom effect. It's not always that effective. It really depends. In this case, I'm not sure I will use that node. I have actually another one that is called the Expo Glow, and this one you will have to download it online. You can find it really easily. It is free. And this one is a bit better, I think, in my opinion, because it has a bit more settings. Like it has this pre-grade and post-grade setting. And I just think it works a lot better most of the time. So first I'm trying just to look for the right settings here. Then I will see if I need to mask anything using, for example, the keyer and doing like a luminance key. So I want the effect in this case to be quite subtle because I want to avoid the shot to look too soft. That is something that you don't want. Otherwise it's just gonna be muddy. You do want to have some sharpness in the details, especially in all those foreground trees. What I'm trying to achieve here is more to have a soft transition, I guess, between the different grounds and mostly in the background. But I don't want the shot to look too muddy. Something like this should work. Then you can also add here a grain. Once again, in this case, I'm using the native grain inside of Nuke, but if you work like on a film production, it is likely that you will get the grain coming from the camera that the film has been shot in. So little grain. Then you can also add what else can we add here? Let me see. I'm gonna add a little bit of defocus. So that's pretty much self-explanatory. What I want to do is to make the background a bit more soft, a bit less in focus. I can also add edge blurs. Those are going to really help, once again, blend everything together nicely. So I can add a bunch of them. I can probably add one for every mountain layer, for example. I'm still going to try to first tweak this defocus. Once again, you got to just pay attention not to make the shot look too soft. It's always tricky to do, I think, those final adjustment. You usually think it's easy, but actually I find it very often quite the most difficult to add this final polishing touch, because you can really easily go too far and make everything looks muddy, oversaturated, or not enough. It really depends. So I think this is where having a good eye becomes really important, because I'm gonna add those edge blurs here. It's really subtle, but it does help, I think, get rid of this unnatural sharpness that you can sometimes have when you like a 2D matte painting. So it's gonna help a little bit blend everything together. And I'm gonna add one for every mountain layer of my matte painting, I think. Might also add one to the CG probably. Something like this here to blend this castle a bit better with the background. Also this building here. Okay, it might not be super visible in the video because those are really tiny adjustments, but I think it does make a difference. And that's why it's actually so hard, because all those tiny adjustments, they do add up at the end. And it's really about keep looking at this shot from very close, from far away, maybe take a break for an hour, then come back, and you will see stuff that will suddenly pop up to your eyes. But I think we're pretty good at this point. So always, quite often, switch off and off all those nodes just to see the subtle difference. So I keep looking at this and I try to see if some of my elements are maybe too much pushed in the reds, in the green. When it comes to colors, I think we're pretty good at this point. I do want to work again on my gloom effect. I wasn't exactly completely satisfied, so I'm gonna use the same basic glow node, except that in this case I'm gonna use, along with that, a keyer, and I'm gonna use luminance key. So I press A, and that will visualize my alpha in black and white, and I tweak the key node to isolate my highlights, and then I could put the glow node, and as a mask I will put my alpha. So that means that the glow will only affect those highlights. Something like this probably. And I can also put a gray node after that, and same. You will see that as a mask I'm gonna use once again the alpha. So this gray node will only affect my alpha. And I'm using this after the glow node because the glow tends to maybe make everything a bit too bright. So I'm toning everything down a little bit with the gray node after the glow. Another cool effect we can add is a lens distortion. Now, most of the time when you work on a proper film, you will get a proper distortion map. In this case, I don't have one, so I'm simply gonna fake it a little bit. All those little things just help, you know, build this cinematic look. Okay, I do think it probably looks a tiny bit too soft, as I was saying, so probably going to go back a little bit in the glow node and change a few settings, or in the gray node. Yeah, it's too soft for now. I do want to bring back a little bit of the sharpness. Something like this already feels a tiny bit better. Because I do want the shot to be kind of gloomy, to have this bit of fantasy, dreamy effect. But I do not want to sacrifice too much sharpness either. So it's really about having a balance, a mix of everything. I could also add a color lookup if I wanted to. It's basically like the curves inside of Photoshop. I don't think I really need it in this case, but at least I can show you guys you can also use that. Maybe another color node if I want to push a bit more everything towards the blue. It's gonna be a really subtle effect once again. And okay, I think we're pretty good at this stage. Don't exactly see what else I could add, because as I've said, it's really easy to overdo it. So try to have some restraint, and if you can allow it, once you've done your color corrections and adjustment final touches, just let the shot rest a little bit, maybe for a day or two, if you can do it, and then come back to it with like fresh eyes or fresh look on it, because by now you're probably used to it. And so you might not see some mistakes in colors, or how you've maybe overdone a few of the color correction, because, you know, even after all those years, and because I've done a lot of work those past years, even I still sometimes have troubles, you know, seeing my mistakes. So it really helps to just let the shot a little bit rest and come back to it later if you can. But okay, let's say we're pretty good at this point.